The following program contains graphic scenes of men in catsuits and platform boots singing songs with meaningless lyrics. Viewers of a nervous disposition have 30 seconds to run for their lives.
Yes, it's back for one night only. What am I talking about, pop pickers? Haha, glam rock, that's what.
Yes, indeed, Fluff, and on behalf of all of us, I just want to say how lovely it is to see that you're still, alive.
Well, thanks, Tone. I love the hair and the horse it came from. But in the meantime, viewers, when glam was king, all that glittered turned to gold records, and tonight we'll be revealing the all-time top 10 chart-topping glam acts of all time, all right?
Yes, tonight, we're going to party like it's 1970, when glam was the new sensation sweeping the nation.
It was a time when men weren't afraid to be men, and they weren't afraid to be women either. They're not half, they were half and half.
Gonna have to work that one out, me old mate,
I
okay?
think so.
Yes, and to kick off this cornucopia of camp, we salute the godfathers of glam. Who were they? Why were they? And more to the point, what the hell were they on?
The glam rush was on. Writers Mike Chapman and Nicky Chin spawned many of the monsters we remember today. With its hand on its hip and its tongue in its cheek, glam became queen of all it surveyed. Tonight we salute those plucky performers on platforms and say a heartfelt wham bam thank you glam. This is a story of monolithic proportions, of a time when rock had access to excess. It's a story of 4 men in makeup: Steve Priest, Andy Scott, Brian Connolly, and Mick Tucker. Sweet. They were rock gods and they got hammered.
Let's say there's been some damage along the way. I think at the time, in the 70s, there was a lot of stories going around about us, and I just want to set the record straight. They were all true. I personally feel quite lucky to have come out of it fairly unscathed. I mean, I'm just a screw loose here and there, that's all.
73 was a very good year for us. We had 3 of our biggest hits in England: Blockbuster, Hellraiser, and the other one.
The interesting thing about Sweet was that they were built like hod carriers. When David Bowie put makeup on, he was so elegant and exquisite that it looked appropriate. When Sweet, who had the physique of navvies, put makeup on, it was just so totally disconcerting.
We served a hard apprenticeship. I mean, I've been playing for years now, and it's just beginning to pay off, really.
Everyone thought I was gay anyway. So I went, OK, you think I'm gay, I'm going to act gay.
Can you get little black moustaches?
Well, if you want us to, but you'll have to warn us.
The Sweet have often come in for a lot of criticism about their stage clothes, but they've always been deliberately outrageous.
I think we did it for our own amusement, because it looked to me like the sillier we got, the sillier we got.
I do remember Steve Priest, and just that he had a very unsettling effect on young girls because he was so pretty, so big and beefy, and then he'd stolen all your makeup.
We were doing Blockbuster on Top of the Pops, and I was sitting in the dressing room, in the makeup room, putting my makeup on, and a voice came from beside me going, you know, you really are putting much too much makeup on. And I looked around and it was David Bowie. And I went, oh, get real.
From what I can remember, I'm not going to incriminate them or me, and they lived the wild child scene completely.
You'd never have guessed it looking at their early work.
They forced the record company to let them identify themselves as they wanted to be identified. They didn't want the Coco tracks to be the image of Sweet. They wanted something much harder.
And songwriters Nicky Chinn and Mike Chapman were eventually persuaded to go along with that new direction.
They were good from us, from both points of view. Chapman, from his eagerness in his writing, and Nicky from the co-writing and the superb businessman he was.
Brian was a wonderful lead singer figure, you know, but it's interesting to note that in Sweet, all four of them had a fan base.
Each member of the band had a lead-type voice in different ranges. That's why you ended up with the texture of voice that you get on a Sweet record.
You better beware, you better take care, you better watch out if you got long black hair.
On Top of the Pops, the makeup room was right next door to Pan's People's dressing room. And the one surefire way of maybe trying to meet them, or at least, you know, be in the same room as them, was to go and have some makeup put on. Of course, as you're in there, you start to experiment, and Steve, the original bass player from the band, he just needed to go more and more over the top, and eyeliner, and in the end, it was called glam rock, I suppose, but, you know, we were just fooling around and, you know, trying to have a sniff into Pan's People's dressing room, I suppose.
I remember one guy, Steve Priest, who had very long hair, and he always used to wear sort of rather girly things. I mean, he'd wear sort of all-in-one with sort of flares, and he'd have really, really weird makeup on and lipstick. So he'd look a little bit like a transvestite, but not quite.
Does anyone know the way? Did we hear someone say? We just haven't got a clue what to do.
He just had such a dry sense of humour, you know. It sounded comical and looked comical, the natural way he had of just ignoring the fact that he was singing rubbish instead of the proper lines, you know.
We just haven't got a... Does anyone know the way? There's got to be a way to Blockbuster!
They seemed unstoppable, but for Brian Connolly, the lifestyle wasn't to prove so sweet.
The blonde image, the voice, the looks, you know, the magnetism, it was a dream come true. I mean, I always maintained that his possible next move would have been, you know, somebody could have made him into a film star or something, but wasn't to be.
You know, it was all alcohol. And I didn't have the metabolism that, you know, was able to take it. So it got the better of me. You know, I had several cardiac arrests before I knew I had a problem. Until I woke up out of a sort of a coma in hospital, I thought, that's it, that's my lot. And happened from that day to this.
Sadly, since this programme was recorded, Brian Connolly has died. But he'll always be remembered for songs like this.